Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Archana Solanki. Here are the headlines we're tracking this evening. First in-person trade talks between India and the United States since the Trump administration's 50% tariff levy came into effect. United States top negotiator Brendan Lynch and his team hold talks with Indian officials. The External Affairs Ministry is also a part of the negotiations. Sensex gains nearly 600 points. Nifty hits a two-month high. All sectoral indices barring FMCG end in the green. Rupee gains against the dollar but remains above the 88 mark. US Federal Reserve gears up to meet with investors, widely anticipating a rate cut. European markets trade with caution. Stocks rise in Japan, China and other Asian markets after positive developments in trade talks between the US and China. Expectations of a rate cut in the US take gold prices to fresh record high. Silver prices hit a 14-year high. All base metals, including aluminum, copper and zinc, also perk up on supply concerns. CBIC clarifies on industry queries ahead of the GST rate cut rollout, says recalling, relabeling or re-stickering of packs containing medicine or medical devices is not mandatory before the 22nd of September if the stock is already in the market, but retailers should prominently display the revised prices, as that 5% GST without input tax credit will be applicable to salons, gyms, spas and yoga classes and hotel accommodations up to 7,500 rupees. SoftBank-backed semiconductor company ARM is betting big on India. CEO Rene has said the company has doubled its talent pool in India within 3 years, predicts the next killer AI app to emerge in the healthcare sector. L&T formally requests to exit the loss-making Hyderabad Metro Rail project, offers to sell stake to the central and state government, submits a letter to the Union Urban Affairs Minister Manohar Lal Khattar. At least 5 people killed in the Dehradun district as heavy rains trigger landslides across Uttarakhand. Met Department issues a red alert and warns of more rains. 48 people killed after Israel launches ground offensive in Gaza city. Residents were warned to evacuate. An inquiry by the United Nations finds Israel's war on Gaza is a genocide nearly 2 years after the assault began. And the top story this evening, India and the United States are holding the first in-person trade talks since the Trump administration imposed 50% tariffs on the country. A delegation including USA's chief negotiator Brendan Lynch is in New Delhi to meet India's chief negotiator Rajesh Agarwal. The discussions between the two are not a separate round of talks but part of the ongoing negotiations. The External Affairs Ministry is also engaged in the talks. The meeting comes on the back of President Trump resorting to a more reconciliatory stance amid the tariff standoff with India. Abhimanyu Sharma is here with more details on the visit of the US negotiation team to India.
Well, it's not the 6th round of negotiations yet. It's the talks are going to take place only for a day today, which is possibly going to decide the way ahead, how talks are going to proceed in the near future, when is going to be the next round of negotiations, and more importantly, whether both the sides are going to stick to the timeline which had earlier been indicated by both the sides. Now, the timeline which was indicated earlier by the leaders of both the countries was the first tranche of a mutually beneficial bilateral trade agreement by the fall of this year. That is by the October or November of this year. So it remains to be seen how early both the sides are going to fix the next date of negotiations, that is the next round of negotiations, which will involve several issues. Now, the talks which are taking place today between the top negotiators from both the sides are going to decide not just on the timeline but also several issues pertaining to pending diplomatic concerns may also be taken up, since MEA would also be a part of the talks from India's side. So all issues, of course, would be on the table as part of these one-day talks, which are going to decide the future, the fate of the future negotiations, and whether both the sides are going to stick to a timeline of the first tranche of a PTA by this fall or not.
Basic point is that his mind is not wired to take pressure. As a result of which a lot of us, lesser mortals like me, we are also very confident. We are in the midst of all that turbulence. Look, we are in the midst of negotiations, right? Some of those negotiations were the X and Y I have done. Okay, but I don't think when you're in the midst of negotiations, you should talk about that. First of all, there's no pressure. First of all, let's be very clear. I didn't know you were immersed in oil. So why are you talking about? There's no issue here. The fact of the matter is, the interests which are taken in the best interests of the country.
All right, let's talk about the day's market action. The stock markets witnessed all-round gains with Nifty hitting over a two-month high and Sensex gaining 600 points. Nifty Bank closed above the 55,100 mark for the first time in a month. All sectoral indices, barring FMCG, closed with gains. Surbhi Upadhyay joins us now with the day's market action.
Well, a day of very, very good gains coming in for the market. It had a very quiet start, but then the momentum simply picked up. And the fact that the Nifty managed to, sail past this resistance zone of 25,150 thereabouts, that led to short covering. And by the end of it, we had a very nice, almost, over 170-point move come in. The other good facet was that this was a very broad-based market move as well. It wasn't limited to just one or two big stocks or big sectors. In fact, if I talk about the outperforming sectors today, so auto, real estate, infra, oil and gas, all of these names were up and about. I'll come back to the individual stocks in just a bit. The other good factor today was that once again, the broader market did pretty well. The mid-cap index was up 0.5%, and the advanced decline ratio was positive throughout the session. Now let's come to the Nifty gainers. Kotak Mahindra Bank, L&T, Bharti, Axis Bank, JSW Steel, BEL. This, gives you a glimpse of what I'm talking about. Extremely broad-based in nature. Auto stocks were revved up. They've been down last couple of sessions. They've seen some profit taking. But today, your names like Eicher Motors, Maruti, M&M, all of them were up and about. Even IT bounced back today. TCS, Wipro, HCL Tech, these names were good contributors as well. In fact, there were not too many losers at all on the large cap screen. Some consumer stocks that took it a bit easy. So Tata Consumer, Nestle, Asian Paints declining between 0.5% to about 1%. Mid caps, again, plenty of high flyers here. Let me name some stocks. Force Motors, Reddington, GE Shipping, which sold off one of its vessels today, PN Gadgil, the jeweler, Axis Cades, GMR Airport, just lots of momentum. Many of these stocks not even moving on very specific news flow, but just momentum driving up stock prices. So the market is in a sweet spot now, having climbed a key resistance level. The next key triggers obviously would be the Fed meet, where the consensus is that we'll at least get 25 basis points rate cuts. So global markets are in fine form. And then any positive overtures or statements when it comes to the India-US trade negotiation, that could again fire up the bulls. So for now, a good Tuesday close.
So in the big picture, this is just a year of healthy consolidation in the Indian stock market, and what remains, in my view, the best structural growth story in global equities. And the big positive for the Indian stock market is the huge continuing mutual fund inflows have absorbed this supply. Now, if those domestic mutual fund flows did not exist, the Indian market may be down about 20–30%, and then that would have triggered big foreign buying. But because the domestic flows have been absorbing the supply, we've had this sideways trading pattern. But in the big picture, it's a healthy consolidation.
The U.S. Federal Reserve will begin its two-day policy meeting tonight. Economists expect a 25 basis point rate cut. Weakening U.S. economic data, especially in the labor market, has fueled expectations of a rate cut. The Fed has kept rates unchanged for 5 straight meetings over 9 months. Remember, the Fed chair signaled that future policy moves would hinge on labor market conditions in July. CNBC's Steve Leisman tells us more on what's at stake for Jerome Powell and the central bank.
There's a lot for those eyes to be looking at with a little Fed meeting mayhem. Just under 18 hours to go before the Fed begins its two-day meeting. Unclear how many voters will be there. Relative confidence, however, in how the voters will vote. Here's what's in play right now. The administration asked for an appeals court to overturn the Cook injunction against her firing by the president sometime by today, so we're watching the docket. The Senate's supposed to vote on the nomination of CEA Chair Stephen Myron, so we're watching the Senate. Cloture vote supposed to happen at 5:30, full vote at 8 o'clock. So there could be 10, could be 11, could be 12 voters at the Fed meeting tomorrow. We don't know. May not know till late tonight. Beyond personnel, the Fed has to deal with economic economic issues, inflation running above the 2% target, unemployment ticking up, and they have to find a compromise between hawks and doves, both worried about different sides of the mandate there. The futures market, not troubled by either the personnel or the economic issues. They overwhelmingly are priced for 3 cuts this year, 1 at each of the remaining 3 meetings. If Myron is approved, there will be considerable speculation about what you might call the Myron dot. President Trump was complaining that the funds rate 300 basis points too high. No Fed official has a future dot anywhere near that. We'll see where Myron comes in. He remains, however, the chair of the President's Council of Economic Advisors on unpaid leave of absence. So it remains to be seen if we forecast deep rate cuts, that could drive down the average rate that the market focuses on, but for the outlook for the Committee for Rates. Now, we could have dissents, Dom, in favor of a cut bigger than 25, and even a dissent for no cut at all.
Now, gold prices have hit fresh record highs on expectations that the U.S. Federal Reserve will cut rates. A softer dollar and lower treasury yields also supported prices. Silver prices also hit a 14-year high. Similarly, all base metals, including aluminium, copper and zinc, also perk up on supply concerns. India's LNG demand is set to fall in 2025 for the first time in years. Bloomberg has reported India has purchased around 16 million tons of LNG in 8 months through August. This is 10% less than a year earlier. This is because buyers expect a surge in production to push prices lower. The CBIC has clarified on industry queries ahead of the GST rate cut rollout on the 22nd of September. Timsy Jaipuria joins us now. Timsy, take us through the top clarifications, please.
Well, top on the list of clarifications is what happens to the medicines which are in stock right now, which are at retail points, at chemists. Well, CBIC has clarified that as per NPPA's order, re-stickering or relabeling is not mandatory on such stock, provided the revised list of reduced rates is displayed at such centers, at such retail points, and also a similar list is provided on medicine by medicine to the retailer. So that's a big clarity. 5% to be there, and in certain cases nil also in cases of medicines for rare diseases and cancer drugs. Even for medical devices, the rates will now come down to 5%. But yes, what happens to existing stock? Well, relabeling and re-stickering not mandatory, provided all the retailers and consumers are well aware about the reduced rates. Secondly, on the list is what happens to the hotel stay for up to 7,500 rupees per day. Well, industry had asked that whether they can opt for 18% with ITC. Well, the government has made it clear that that is not an option. It has to be a mandatory 5% without ITC for any hotel stay below 7,500 rupees or up to 7,500 rupees. When it comes to e-commerce deliveries, so if you and I are wanting to order through our famous e-commerce platform for our local deliveries or food deliveries, well, the e-commerce operator will have to pay 18% GST without ITC if the service operator or the last mile delivery person is not registered under GST. If he is registered, then he will pay it at 18%. Otherwise, the e-commerce operator is liable. Another on this is what happens to salons, gyms, spa, etc. The physical well-being, well over there too. There's a clarity that it is only 5% without ITC, and that is mandatory. You cannot opt for 18% with ITC. So that rate clarification again coming out. And last and not the least, what happens to drones? There are several varieties of drones. So drones with cameras, with recorders, they will be at 18%. However, any other drone, whether used for personal or commercial use, without any camera or recorder, that will be 5%. So these are some important clarifications. And yes, not to forget insurance, another big line out there. So if it is a group company or a major or someone who's booking health insurances for all the employees, then they will be charged 18%. But if you and I are buying a health insurance for ourselves, for our family, then the insurance will not attract any GST. It will be exempt. So if a company buys health insurance policy for all its employees, well, that will be charged at 18%. There is no exemption on that.
All right. Thank you, Timsy, for that comprehensive update. Moving on, L&T has formally requested to exit the Hyderabad Metro Rail project. Why so? Well, the infra major cited major financial losses and a lack of support from the Telangana government. The company has recently requested the centre or state to take over the 69.2-kilometre network spanning 3 corridors. L&T has offered to sell its equity to either the state or the central government. Speaking with CNBC-TV18 earlier in August, the chairman and MD S.N. Subramanian had said that L&T should have never gotten into the Hyderabad Metro project.
We have put more than 20,000 crores there and probably running one of the few private metros on earth. Probably we should not have done it, but we have done it. And now it's an asset with us. It has a revenue of about 750, 800 crores. And it makes a loss of about 600, 700 crores, primarily because of the borrowings. We have 13,000 odd crores of borrowings, and at an interest rate of 7.5%, that's a loss on the books. With the help of the state government, we did increase the fares a bit, by about 20%. The losses have come down. In my opinion, we need a couple of more fare increases.
Unilever has announced the appointment of Srinivas Phatak as its new Chief Financial Officer. Phatak was serving as acting CFO since February this year after the company initiated a search for a permanent successor. He was also the CFO of Hindustan Unilever between 2017 and mid-2021. This makes him the first Indian to hold the CFO role at Unilever. Apollo Hospitals has launched Asia's first cancer centre dedicated to women in Delhi. Chief Minister Rekha Gupta, along with founder and chairman Pratap Reddy, inaugurated the centre, which is named Apollo Athena. This centre offers screening, surgical oncology, fertility preservation, nutrition support, among other services. Apollo Hospitals Executive Vice Chairman told CNBC-TV18 that the centre is a step towards plugging the gap in healthcare for women in India. She also added that the entire Apollo Cancer Network is connected with this centre and will provide any second opinion or care to a patient if they are in need of.
So we've equipped it with the best-in-class equipment, and we've hired some of the best doctors globally. And they have gone and trained in the centers abroad, they've trained within the system. And what excites me the most is the entire Apollo Cancer Network is part of this. Because anytime a patient, wants an opinion, we can get it from anywhere in the world. And we do molecular tumor boards. So every patient is discussed in every aspect of, of what the disease is. And I think that is the right way to deal with cancer, and that's what we're doing here.
When it comes to cancer, what are the kind of gaps and loopholes that you see today, even after so much that has been done in terms of research, in terms of medical attention?
So there is a huge gap between actually finding it at the right time, because cancer, when detected at the right time, is actually curable. So, women are not doing their checkups, they're not conscious enough and picking it up at the right time so that we can do the right interventions. And I think that is the gap which we want to address.
Right, we'll slip into a short break. Coming up next, an exclusive interview with Rene Haas, the CEO of SoftBank-backed semiconductor company ARM, and why it's betting big on India. Welcome back. A quick check at the big international headlines. A United Nations inquiry has concluded that Israel's nearly 2-year war on Gaza amounts to genocide. The report calls upon the international community to take action against those responsible. Israel has rejected the findings and accused UN of relying on what it describes as Hamas falsehoods. Meanwhile, Israeli Defense Forces have declared that the main stage of their ground operation in Gaza City has begun. From one war-torn country to another, Ukraine said it shot down 59 of 84 Russian drones fired overnight. Meanwhile, Russia said that a Ukrainian drone attack killed 2. This comes as Poland called for a NATO-enforced no-fly zone over Ukraine. The country's foreign minister said it would be the best way to protect the alliance from airspace violations. However, Moscow warns that such a move would be seen as a declaration of war, risking direct conflict. U.S. President Donald Trump has filed a $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times, accusing the paper of defamation and libel. Now, the lawsuit filed in Florida claims the NYT published false and damaging stories about Trump, his family, and his business. In a post on Truth Social, Trump called the paper a mouthpiece for the Democratic Party without elaborating on the allegations. President Donald Trump has said that U.S. military struck an alleged Venezuelan drug boat, killing 3 people. And this happened in international waters. The attack comes after a similar strike earlier this month that left 11 people dead. Trump gave no evidence that the boat was carrying drugs. However, he warned that U.S. would continue to target people who are trying to get drugs into the country. Google's parent company, Alphabet, announced a $6.8 billion investment in the United Kingdom's artificial intelligence sector. The announcement comes hours after U.S. President Trump's visit to the nation, where he scheduled to meet Prime Minister Keir Starmer. The tech giant announced its plans to open new data centers near London to keep up with its growing demand for AI-powered services. Google has said that the investment is expected to create more than 8,000 jobs annually in its UK business. ARM Holdings CEO Rene has said that the British semiconductor company is betting big on India. In an exclusive conversation with CNBC-TV18, Rene highlighted that the company has doubled its talent pool in India over the last 3 years. He also clarified that SoftBank's AI venture with OpenAI Stargate is not scaling down. He also said that he expects the next killer AI app to likely emerge in the healthcare sector.
Demand for the AI technology that Stargate is to enable, since we announced this in January, frankly, here in September, 9 months later, has only increased, and we're so excited about that. There's no scaling back as far as my vantage point. I'm the CEO of ARM, but I'm also on the board of SoftBank, so I have a bird's eye view into what's going on with the Stargate activity, and there's no slowing down whatsoever. We've doubled our headcount since I've become CEO, and I can see this region continuing to grow because some of the key assets you need in terms of developing intellectual property designs, which we do, or subsystems, or even beyond, require the unique talent that this region has. Semiconductors have become so strategic for every country, and India is no different. And India is looking to rapidly grow an indigenous effort around design and development in that areas. We have a lot of activity going on in that space. So I see nothing but growth for us ahead in India. Designing a chip versus curing cancer, I'm going to bet on the killer app for AI is in health. I think when you look at everything that's involved with drug research, gene studies, things around genomics, and then even things such as clinical trials. The clinical trials that are required for drugs are numbers and numbers of years. If AI can greatly accelerate that and bring innovation in terms of drug discovery that will help curing cancer, Alzheimer's disease, other areas, that is an area I think I'm very, very excited about.
At least 5 people were killed in Dehradun district as heavy rains triggered landslides and caused rivers to swell across Uttarakhand. The Met Department has issued a red alert. NDRF teams have been deployed for rescue and relief operations. Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami said that the excessive rainfall had caused extensive damage to roads, bridges and government property. The Supreme Court has directed Maharashtra Election Commission to conduct local body elections in the state by January next year. This includes elections to the BMC, India's richest civic body, as well as remember, the last BMC elections were held in February 2017. The apex court pulled up the poll regulator for its failure to adhere to the previous deadline. Further, the court drew a red line saying it shall not grant any further extension on the matter. The Supreme Court also directed the Maharashtra State Election Commission to complete the delimitation process by October. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Business 360. News and updates continue right here on CNBC TV18.